Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking a really fascinating and, I have to say, genuinely chilling shortcut into a global urban legend.
It's one of those that really gets under your skin.
It does. You sent us a huge stack of source material on it detailing these countless reports of a really disturbing phenomenon. The black-eyed kids, or BE.
And, the name itself, in some of the regional reports, it's translated as P.O. Yay! It just sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? Simple fiction.
Totally.
But what's so striking, what jumps out immediately, is the incredible uniformity of the testimonies. I mean, these are highly specific accounts detailing the same characteristics, the same encounter protocols over and over again.
And that alignment is exactly what our mission is today. We need to unpack why these stories are so perfectly lined up, regardless of where they come from. What is it that pushes this from a creepy story into a shared psychological event?
And then we have to get into that fault line, the big split between the rational skeptical explanations and the much more powerful supernatural theories that have grown around it.
Oh, okay. So let's start with the image, the one that anchors this entire thing, the defining feature.
It's the eyes. It has to be the eyes. Reports from all over the world, they all stress this. These are children, usually somewhere between, say, 6 and 16 years old,
Right.
whose eyes are 100% black. There's no pupil, no iris, no sclera, no white at all.
And it's not just described as dark. It's an absolute void, a featureless, unsettling black hole. And that's a terrifying kind of sensory deprivation, isn't it?
How so?
Well, think about how we interact. The first thing you do is you look into someone's eyes. You're trying to gauge emotion, intent, trustworthiness.
That our whole framework for connection.
Exactly. And when that's just a perfect black hole, that whole framework just gets stripped away.
Absolutely. The eyes are the only thing that's overtly wrong, and that violation of what we expect to see, that seems to be the trigger for absolutely everything that follows.
So let's move into the anatomy of one of these encounters. Beyond that horrific visual, the reports almost universally paint a picture of normalcy, almost like a camouflage.
That's a great way to put it.
So what do we know about their general appearance and how they act?
Witnesses consistently say that, otherwise these kids look physically normal. They're dressed in very ordinary, typical clothing. Hoodies, jeans, T-shirts.
So not like monsters.
No, not at all. They're never described as having, claws or glowing features. They just look like neighborhood kids who maybe got lost or in trouble.
It's the normalcy that creates the trap, then. But the sources say their demeanor, that quickly contradicts the benign look.
It does. They speak with a low, often monotonous voice. They're almost always described as being cold or flat or just completely emotionless. And critically, they often stand extremely still.
That stillness is key, I think.
It's vital. If they were fidgeting or, acting like normal kids, you might just dismiss the eyes as a weird genetic thing.
Right.
But that combination, the uniform black eyes and the complete emotional flatness, it gives them this immediate, unnatural, almost doll-like presence.
And the setting is so important for building that tension.
Yeah.
This isn't just a chance meeting in a park.
No.
The reports almost always place them right at your door, on the threshold of your home, often late at night. They are literally trying to cross the boundary into your safe space.
And that physical setting, it just amplifies the psychological pressure.
Yeah.
Which brings us to this critical experience that almost every single witness shares. And this is where it gets really interesting.
What's that?
Long before the kids even say a word, witnesses report feeling this immediate, overwhelming, and they specifically call it an unnatural fear, a panic.
So this isn't the kind of fear you get from a clear threat, like a strange adult at your door.
Exactly. This is an immediate, almost irrational alarm system just blaring. People describe it as a sudden wave of tension, a tightness in the chest, a primal feeling that you are in profound danger.
A feeling that makes no logical sense because all you're seeing is a child standing there.
Precisely. Your fear mechanism is engaged, even though the sensory input, a quiet kid, doesn't warrant it. It suggests that whatever this thing is, it's capable of creating a true physiological response in the person. It goes beyond just what you see.
And some reports try to anchor this subjective feeling to the physical world. We have accounts that say their appearance is linked to a sudden, unexplained drop in temperature.
Like a coldness that just emanates from them.
Yeah, that sudden physical chill paired with that overwhelming panic, it creates this complete sensory experience of absolute wrongness.
If you look at it psychologically, the whole phenomenon is not just a visual trick, it's an integrated attack on your senses,
Yeah.
almost designed to overwhelm your ability to think rationally
Gross.
or even act compassionately.
Which brings us right into the core of the encounter, because they aren't just static, terrifying figures. They want something. And that request is the central, consistent behavior across all these reports.
They explicitly request to be let into the house.
That's the one thing they always ask for.
Always. They use these simple, almost disarming phrases like, "We need to use your phone," or "Can you let us in? We're cold." The common thread is always, they request permission to enter.
And this is where the narrative tension just becomes almost unbearable for the witness, and for us analyzing it.
It's a perfect trap.
On one hand, you have a child, a figure of innocence, right? It triggers our deepest instincts to help someone who's lost or vulnerable.
But on the other hand, you have that visceral, overwhelming, primal fear, that internal alarm screaming at you to lock the door to get away.
Yeah.
The witness is trapped between their civilized self and their survival instinct.
And the sources all say that the outcome of the encounter rests entirely on that one human decision. So, what happens when they're denied entry?
The reports are so consistent on this, and it's strangely anticlimactic, given the terror that comes before it. If you refuse, the children they disappear suddenly.
They don't argue. They don't threaten.
Nothing. They don't fight. They're just gone.
That vanishing act is almost as unsettling as the eyes themselves. It suggests they're operating outside of, normal physics. Which leads us to the evidence question.
Of course.
If this is a global thing, why don't we have crystal clear, high-res proof?
Well, this is a classic problem with any paranormal claim, especially one that happens mostly at night.
Yeah.
Yes, there are claims of, say, security cameras recording children with strange features.
Right.
The major issue is that the completely black eyes, the one single defining feature, are incredibly hard to capture clearly.
You're just dealing with the physics of light and shadow, I guess.
You are. A featureless, perfectly black surface just absorbs light. If a camera is already struggling in low light, that perfect blackness, especially in the deep socket of an eye, can easily look ambiguous or just get lost in the shadows of the final image.
Okay, so the physical evidence is weak.
But what's truly fascinating here isn't the lack of physical evidence, it's the strength of the social evidence. These testimonies are coming from people who are miles apart, cultures apart, often people who've never even heard of the legend.
And they independently come up with the same hyper-specific description.
Exactly the same. Ordinary clothes, silent demeanor, black eyes, standing at the door, asking to enter. The uniformity of the testimony is the data point we have to look at.
So the knowledge isn't being spread like a campfire story, it's being generated by a shared experience.
It seems so. And that consistency is why every single piece of source material has the same implicit warning, the one golden rule of a big encounter.
Do not let them enter, no matter what.
It is the ultimate boundary enforcement. It implies that granting them access, that's the point of no return.
So now we have to shift into the analysis phase. We need to try and apply some rigorous thought to what feels like a completely irrational experience. Skepticism demands we at least try to rationalize the visual part. So let's dive into the main scientific explanations for the eyes. There are about 3, right?
3 main ones, yeah. The first, and maybe the most common, it centers on optics and light. It suggests the appearance is because of abnormal or extreme pupil dilation. Mydriasis.
Meaning the pupil just gets really, really big?
Hugely big. And if the person's iris is already very dark and the lighting is poor-like on a dark porch, the pupil can visually just consume the entire iris. It makes the whole eye look black.
That makes some sense, I suppose. These encounters always happen at night, and your eyes naturally dilate in the dark to let more light in.
The second skeptical explanation is even simpler. It just focuses on the environment. Poor lighting, deep shadows.
So the idea is the eyes aren't physically different at all.
Exactly. If the kids are standing with their back to a weak light, or they're just inside the shadow of an overhang, the deep sockets of their eyes might just appear entirely black to someone looking out from a lit room. It's a trick of perspective.
Okay. And what's the third, more medical explanation?
The third suggests a few rare, specific medical syndromes. Conditions like severe aniridia, which is the complete absence of an iris.
Wow.
Or severe microphthalmia, which affects the eye's development. It's possible that under certain lighting, these conditions could make the eye appear mostly or entirely black.
But this is where we hit the scientific gap, and it's a huge one.
It really is.
Because while those 3 things might explain the visual of a black eye in the dark, They completely fail to explain the most important part of the reports:
The terrifying behavior.
the behavior and that shared emotional response of unnatural panic.
Exactly. A physiological explanation for the eyes doesn't explain the psychological terror or the sudden disappearance. If you met a child with a rare syndrome, you might be startled, sure, but why the immediate, overwhelming primal danger signal that makes you lock your door?
You just can't dismiss that core psychological factor. The terror seems to be systemic. It's not just a reaction to what you're seeing. It's the consistency of the terror that defines these reports, not the consistency of the lighting.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, if we move beyond pure skepticism for a moment, we end up in the territory of folklore and the supernatural.
Right.
The most circulated theory out there is that they aren't human children at all, that they're entities, or kiranat, as some sources put it, disguised as children.
And this supernatural interpretation, it hinges entirely on that core behavioral element, doesn't it? The request to be let in.
Their goal is always universally to enter your house. And that raises a really important question, one that echoes through ancient mythology and folklore across so many cultures.
Why do they need permission?
Exactly. If they're powerful enough to make you feel physiological terror and to vanish into thin air, why do they need an invitation?
It suggests that their power or their presence requires the human resident to willingly, what, drop a boundary? Let them in.
In so many supernatural traditions, especially with things like vampires or certain types of spirits, they cannot cross the threshold of a home without an explicit invitation.
So this limitation is critical. It turns the whole thing into a psychological test.
It does. The entity is manipulating your compassion, your social programming, to gain entry. But they can't actually breach the physical or maybe the spiritual security of the home themselves. The witness is the one who holds all the power.
And it's fascinating that the rule seems to be understood by the entities too. The fact that they just vanish when you say no.
Right. They don't try to force their way in. It's this unspoken rule that they have to abide by. Their urgency to be let in, it suggests that their effectiveness, or maybe their ability to do harm, only activates once they're past that threshold.
So refusing entry is the only defense you need.
It seems to be the most effective one, yes.
This has been a really deep dive into a uniquely unsettling legend. Let's try to synthesize the key takeaways for you, the listener. First, we have this hyper-consistent physical description.
Right. Children who look normal, but with eyes that are absolute black voids, which triggers this immediate instinctive rejection.
Second, there's the universal encounter protocol. They are always asking to get into your home, and this triggers an immediate, overwhelming wave of psychological and often physical terror.
A terror that happens long before they do anything threatening.
And third, the whole phenomenon seems to rest on a crucial element of human free will. Whether you think they're projections or visual mistakes or actual supernatural entities, the uniform advice is to refuse entry. The encounter only ends successfully for the resident when that boundary is held.
The power of the black-eyed kid phenomenon, it isn't just in the shocking visual, it's in the uniformity of the profound emotional terror they create. A terror that forces us to choose between our social obligation to help the innocent and our most basic survival instinct.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought for you to explore on your own. Given that all these accounts stress their urgent, consistent need to be let into the house, what deeper cultural or psychological threshold does the simple act of opening your door represent in these tales of the unknown? If a powerful, terrifying entity has to abide by your simple no is the permission you hold, actually more powerful than the entity itself. Think about that next time you feel a sense of dread when you hear a simple knock in the dark.